So let's start with our export-led model article, which is based on this article which appeared on page number 6 in the Hindu newspaper. Now, this article provided fact with respect to imports and exports for the month of October. And what are those facts? That India's exports fallen by 2.8% if you compare with 2022 level, and India's import fallen by 4.2 percentage. Okay, and driven these two factors led in the fall of merchandise trade deficit. See the gap. Now, what is this mercantile trade deficit? Is import minus exports. So, though gap between import and export is narrowing down, falling down, but still we witness current value of export is falling. Still, India is importing more and exporting less. But to become to become export-led model or to export more, this is a challenge for India. So we'll in this discussion we'll deal how we can rectify this issue. Also, why we have taken this article for your discussion, for your mains discussion, because Indian economy and issues related to planning, mobilization of resources, growth, development, and employment mentioned in your syllabus under GS paper 3. Okay. Also, UPSC has been asking question based on different aspects related to growth and development. Like in year 2015, UPSC framed a question with respect to says special economic zones. Here you need to write down about the issues playing the success of CES with respect to taxation, governing laws and administration. Also in year 2017, there was a question which talks about the failure of manufacturing sector in achieving the goal of labor intensive exports rather than capital intensive exports. We'll deal with all these terms in our discussion. Okay. So in this discussion, we'll see what is export-led growth model of development. Now, why we need it? So if we need it, what are the challenges we are facing that we can't achieve it till now? So what are the constraints behind it? Then we'll end our discussion with a way forward. Okay. So now let's start our article. Let's start our discussion. See, export-led model hypothesis provided by United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, that is UNCTAD, CTAD. Okay, so in export-led hypothesis, export is the key determinant of growth of economy. Okay, so export is the key determinant of growth of economy. So if you want to generate growth, then what we need? We need to expand our exports. Okay. So here exports will work as growth of engines. Engines of growth. Okay. So here exports will work as engines of growth. So if you want to generate growth in respective economy, you need to expand export basket. Okay. That what is export-led hypothesis by United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. Okay. Now, What kind of countries can promote export-led model? Countries which seeks economic development by opening up their economies to the international trade. Okay, because they need to export and they need to import in the process. So here you can see export-led virtuous cycle. If there's an increase in exports, definitely it will increase compensation and innovation. See, to make your product more market competitive, definitely you will work on innovation. So there will be increased compensation and innovation. And if your product is more market competitive, then demand will be more. So it will enhance or it will generate more jobs. Definitely, this sector, which is attracting a lot of youths or lot of job creation is there, definitely there it will attract more investment, and finally it will lead to the economic growth of a particular country. That's how we connected export to growth. So this is virtual export led virtuous cycle, and this vision is well aligned with India's vision to become $5 trillion economy. To attain this, definitely India need to become export led model, example of export led model country. Okay, so for this, what India need to do? India need to integrate with global value chains. Okay, and integrating with global value chains definitely will attract investment, lead to more job creation, and lead to economic growth. Okay, so this is all basics about export led model. Now, why we need export led model? Before that, you need to understand the current scenario of India's trade, or you can say India's trade landscape. Got it? So first is India's share in world export market is quite low, or you can say it was stagnant till year 2020. It was 1.6% till 2020, but it witnessed an upmark in year 2021, and currently it is 2.6 percentage. Okay, so India's share in the world export currently is 2.6 percentage, which is high if you compare with countries like Vietnam having 1.5 percentage. Okay, but still it is low if you compare countries like South Korea having 2.7, China having 14%. So you can make a difference between China and India here. Okay. Then dependency on import of critical goods. India is still dependent on imports for its needs of critical goods. And what are those critical goods? Like pulses, oil seeds. Then we have electronic items. So these are critical goods, and India is still dependent on imports. So what it shows? It shows India's it shows India lack self sufficiency. Self sufficiency. Okay. Then we have domination of capital intensive goods in export basket. Now, what do you mean by capital intensive goods? See, any industry or process utilizing lot of capital for production of goods and services. So, capital intensive industries will produce goods like gems, jewelry, है ना? So all these will come under capital. Petroleum products will come under capital intensive goods. Okay, so what for this section of industry we need heavy investment in manufacturing, like machinery, okay, industries. But India domination of capital intensive goods is more than another type of goods, that is labor intensive. Now labor intensive goods are those goods or industries which depends on lots of or large amount of labor for the production of goods and services. So why I'm telling that domination of capital intensive goods, because see, the proportion of these goods are high and these goods require less labor, and production of these labor intensive goods are less. So definitely it's a cause of concern if you talk about employment, with respect to employment. Okay. Then we have current account deficit. That means imports are higher than exports. So imports minus export is CAD. Suppose import is 100 rupees and export is 80 rupees. So the 100 minus 80, 20 is our current account deficit. Okay. So this is the current scenario of India's trade. Now you know that we are there's a domination of capital intensive, which is not well with current scenario with respect to job creation. Then we are still dependent on critical products, imports of critical products. Then India's share in world export is quite low. Just now we have seen. So because of all these factors, there's a need of export led model. Okay. Now you understand why there's a need for export led model. Now, first is in this is empirical evidence. Now, what do you mean by empirical evidence? That countries like Japan, South Korea, these countries are having high economic growth by walking on the path of being a country like export led model growth country. If you take example of bigger economies like China, China is also following the same. If you take example of smaller economies like Vietnam, they're also doing it. So why India cannot? Okay. So empirical evidence is there. Empirical the evidence in support of India's journey to export led model. Then there's a need for shift from consumption led to investment and export driven model. Now, growth, see, this consumption led growth is dependent on consumer spending. Okay. And there's a rise in consumer spending. Why? Because there's a rise in wages and because of low interest rates. So there's a high consumer spending. So this economic growth is basically dependent more on domestic spending and consumer activity. Okay. Second, we have export led or investment led model. In this model, basically, it is dependent on high business activity. Okay. So high business activity, here we need to invest more on infrastructure, machinery and all. So currently, India is having more of consumption led because 60% is coming, 60% of our GDP is coming from this model. And only 12% is coming from export driven model. Now, if India is aspiring to become $5 trillion economy, do you think that literally India can do by dependent only on domestic activity? No. Why? Because this comes with its own challenges. Because if you're more dependent on domestic activity, then there will be rise in imports. And as I told you, rise in imports will give rise to current account deficit, which is another cause of concern. So we need shift from consumption led to investment and export driven model. Okay. Then we have conducive environment. Why? Because there is a current void generated because of declining exports from China because of US China trade war. Okay, so there's a fall in amount of like in quantity of exports from China. Then we have high labor costs in countries like Vietnam and Bangladesh. So India can utilize this as an opportunity and come up as an export country, or it can increase its share in the global market. So conducive environment is the another factor for export led model. Then we have boost make in India and assembled in India. So if we combine these two, then it will give India a win-win situation. Why I'm telling win-win? Because it will create a lot of exports, plus it will boost job employment also. So if integration happen in India, then there's a study that our export will rise from 3.5 percentage to 6 in 2025 to 2030. 3.5 percentage 2025 to 6 percentage in 2030. And same if you talk about job creation, 4 crore jobs will be created in year 2025 and 6 crore jobs will be created in year 2030 just by integrating these two. That is make in India and assemble in India. Okay, that is promoting export led model. Then innovation and efficiency. See, if you want to boost business activity, what you need? You need to have market competitive product. Okay, that means this product should be technological sound, low in price. Okay, how it will be possible? By engaging technology. And for that, what you need? R&D, proper R&D. So there's a need to boost research and development, which in turn will give rise to innovation and efficiency in the market sector. Okay, so these are the important evidences which can help India to recreate its story. Okay, now having seen the what is export led model, importance of export led model, that why India should pursue it, but what what is restricting India in achieving this goal when we know how important it is for India? Because we have constraints on the supply side and demand side. So first we'll see the constraints with respect to supply side, that is with respect to India. Then we'll see constraints with respect to demand side. Demand side means where India is exporting. Okay. So first we'll start with dominance of dwarf firms in MSME sector. See, MSME is providing 40% of exports. Okay, to India's GDP and 45% of marketing output. Okay, this is the proportion provided by MSME. But this sector itself facing issue with respect to FOP. What is FOP? Factors of production, challenges with respect to land, labor, and capital. And this sector is following obsolete or utilizing obsolete technology. If any sector is utilizing obsolete technology, definitely they will not produce market competitive product, right? So how India can climb uh, this journey based on this sector, which itself is facing issue, which itself is facing bottlenecks of with respect to FOP, with respect to obsolete technology. Got it? This is a major challenge. Then India is having higher logistic cost. See, India is having higher logistic cost owing to factors like poor roads, uh, uh, less last mile connectivity with respect to roads and railways. So, owing to these factors, India is having low logistic cost. high logistic cost. So when India is having high logistic cost, definitely it will be added up into product cost, and this makes India's product uncompetitive in global market. And here you should know that India's logistic cost with respect to GDP is 14%. Okay. And if you compare with developed nations, they are having logistic cost around 8 to 10 percentage. So there's a 6 percentage difference between India's and developed nation. So definitely their products will be more market competitive. So we need to work on this. Then next is challenge with respect to trade facilitation. Now, trade facilitation means require less paperwork. Less paperwork means fast track process. Fast track process means more exports. Okay, because it will take less time, it will take less cost, products will be more market competitive, exports amount of exports will be more. This is the ideal situation. But if you talk about India, which measure trade facilitation uh, by India's trade facilitation criteria is quite low, which is one of the measure if you are talking about ease of doing business, which is calculated by World Bank. Okay. Then we have poor innovation. See, just now we have discussed the beauty of good innovation, because if you consider business activity with high innovation, definitely their products will be more market competitive because they are more technologically sound, less price. Okay, but India is not having such situation, because India is spending how much percentage on R&D? India is spending only 0.7 percentage on R&D. And if you compare with USA, it is 2.7 percentage. If you compare with Israel, it is more than that. And how much India is spending? 0.7 percentage. So how we will get market competitive product or technologically sound product? So poor innovation is one of the challenge faced by supply side. Okay. Then identification challenge. See, if each of us is having unique talent, and to explore our potential, we need to tap our unique talent. Same goes with the districts in India. Every district is having capability to be a part of export cluster. But what India is missing is India is missing identification of these clusters within states. So there is identification challenge if you talk about with respect to India. Then we have adverse impact of free trade agreements. Now, what? See, India signed many free trade agreements with countries like Japan, South Korea. Okay, and these free trade agreements led to the inverted duty. Okay, structure. Now, what do you mean by this? Basically, inverted duty structure is when there's a high tax on raw material in comparison to finished goods. Now, what does it mean? That finished goods is cheaper if you compare with raw material. So, definitely demand for finished goods will be more than raw material. So, these free trade agreements led to increase in imports because of inverted duty structure. Okay. So, these are the important supply side constraints with respect to India. Now, India is exporting products to another country. So, we do have demand side constraints. First is rising protectionist policies in importing countries. Now, what do you mean by protectionist policy? any country who is following protectionist policy, definitely they will be curbing imports. And do they will- how they will do? By raising protectionist tariff or quota system. This will make import uh, product costlier than domestic product. So this will make export tougher. Got it? So countries following protectionist policies, definitely it will hamper India's export strategy. Then we have easier market access to India's competitors. See, if you, for example, products coming from countries like Vietnam and Bangladesh, they are getting entry in global markets like of European Union, USA with zero custom duty. Okay, they enter the global market with zero custom duty. Same, India's product will enter global market with high custom duty. Now you tell me which product is cheaper and which product will be costlier. Definitely India product, no. So easier market access to India's competitors is going against us. Okay, this is the another challenge. Then we have WTO norms. See, there's an indiscriminate use of sanitary and phytosanitary measures by other countries with respect to India. You take example of, you must have heard about it, basmati rice and non-basmati rice. A lot of containers of basmati and non-basmati rice rejected by US under the garb of uh, low hygiene issue. Okay, there are no set norms. So, because of this indiscriminate use of sanitary and phytosanitary norms, we are facing, or there's a decline in India's exports. Okay, so these are the important constraints with respect to demand side. Got it? So, supply side and demand side constraint we have just discussed now. Now, we know why it is so important. We know what are the constraints. Now, let's see what should be the way out. First in this is to improve trade competitiveness. And how we'll do that? By improving access to factors of production, by resolving bottlenecks with respect to land, labor, capital. Got it? It will reduce our logistic cost. As I told you, it is 14% of GDP. And if you compare with developed nation, they are having 8 to 10 percentage. So India need to work on it to make its product price competitive. Then next is to protect domestic market. As I told you, we are facing issue of like inverted duty structure. Okay. So for this, what we can do? We can have strong and effective technical regulation, and we should use trade measures like anti-dumping unit. Now you need to tell me in comment box what do you mean by anti-dumping unit, and I will give you a hint. It is a protectionist measures. Okay. Then safeguard duties. Then we have what is much needed is better interministerial coordination. Better coordination between different ministries like foreign ministry, Ministry of Commerce and Industry for better trade facilitation. Okay. And we need to talk, or we need to have a regular interaction with state government also. As I told you, we need to, what India is facing challenges with respect to identification challenges to find out export clusters. Okay. So for that, we need to have a regular interaction with the state governments. Got it? Then, as I told you, how important is MSME for India's economy, because it is providing 40% of the output, export output. Okay. So, and still we know the problems faced by MSME. Okay. They are using obsolete technologies. So, what is much needed here is hand holding support to have access to factors of production and use of appropriate technology to boost exports. Got it? Then, They need to increase access to formal finance. The access to formal finance should be improved to boost production, and it will definitely create jobs, because less than 4% of small firms in India have access to formal finance. And if you compare with nations like US, Vietnam, China, they are having 21% and we are having 4%. Okay. So there is need to increase access to formal finance. Then we need to reorient specially economic zone. Special economic zone, and this suggestion is provided by Baba Kalyani Committee, which you can even write down in your mains answer as a suggestion. You can quote this committee. You should try to quote facts, figure, data in your answer to fetch more marks or to improve the quality of the answer. Okay, so you need to have notes of specific committees or specific facts or specific reports for your answer. Okay, so here important committees, Baba Kalyani Committee, and this committee recommended that SES should be renamed as M3Es, that is employment and economic enclaves. Why? Because that focus should not be only on boosting exports. Focus should be on employment generation, GDP growth rate. Okay. Then, as I told you, how important is for India to come into the global chain. So there is need for integration into global value chain, and how we can do that by simplifying our labor laws. Okay, by scrapping retrospective taxes, by low corporate taxes, then only firms will come to India, uh, then China. So for that, we need to integrate India with global value chain by solving our complex labor laws, by scrapping retrospective taxes, by lowering down our corporate taxes. Okay, so these are the important way forwards. So in the line of this, India came up with, sorry, foreign trade policy 2023, and its broad objectives are that increase India overall exports to $1 trillion by 2030. Okay, with equal contribution from merchandise and service sectors. So here they given equal proportion or importance to merchandise and service sector. Work towards making Indian rupee a global currency, which will facilitate international trade in INR. Okay. Then wider engagement with states and districts to promote exports. Last but not the least, focus should be given on e-commerce exports to streamline the process. Okay. So that's all with respect to export-led model or different aspects related to export-led model. If you have any doubt, kindly drop your doubts in our comment box. Okay. So now let's come to our next topic, which is based on this news article which appeared on page number 6. See, this article talks about Forest Right Act, and you know that government policies and interventions for development in various sectors and issues arising out of design and implementation is important part of your syllabus under GS paper 2. So that's why we have taken this topic for discussion. So before moving to objective of Forest Right Act 2006, first let's have few words about its historical background. See, tribals and other traditional communities or forest dwellers, they were residing in forests since eternity. Okay. So in the process, they developed a mutualistic relationship between them, between forest, a relationship between forest dwellers and forest. Why? Because they were dependent on forest for forest produce, for their livelihood. That's how their relationship was. Then British came up, and British, uh, by curbing, they try to curb resources. They, to control resources of forest resources, British curb the rights of forest dwellers. Okay, by bringing up legislations like India's Forest Act 1927. So this legislation curbed the customary rights of forest dwellers with respect to that forest. And this, you can say, this torture or continued even after independence till we got Forest Right Act 2006, or you can say Scheduled Tribes and other traditional forest dwellers recognition of Forest Right Act 2006. So this is all about the historical background of Forest Right Act. So this act recognizes and vests, let me write, recognizes and vests forest rights and occupation in forest land in whom? In FDST, that is forest forest dwelling scheduled tribes, FDST, and ODFT, that is other traditional forest dwellers. So this act particularly recognizes and vests forest rights and occupation. Okay, rights and occupation in forest land in FDST and ODFT. Also, this act recognized the conservation regime or the importance of conservation, and it also ensure livelihood and food security to FDST and ODFT. Also, this act particularly, it rectify the injustice done by colonial power. Okay, by providing or by giving traditional land right to forest dwellers. Okay, you should know this, these forest dwellers, they are very important for the forest ecosystem, for its sustainability, for its conservation, for its maintenance, for its continuity. Okay, so this act recognizes all these importance. Okay, so this is the basic objective of Forest Right Act 2006. So this act identify four type of rights. First is title right, right to ownership provided to forest dwellers, and here maximum of 4 hectare. And you should know that they, this right is basically for the land they are connected with or they are cultivating. They will not get new land rights or land rights with respect to new land. Okay, under this act. So this is all about the title right. Then they have use right. Forest dwellers can use the minor produce from the forest like tendupata, medicinal plants. Other than, you need to tell me, other than which one is excluded? Yes, timber. For what? For the sake of or to reduce deforestation. Okay. Then they have use right. Then they have relief and development right. Basically, to rehabilitate in case of illegal eviction or forced displacement. So they will be served with basic amenities. Okay. Then they have forest management rights. Here, it includes right to conserve, manage, or you can manage any community forest. which they have been traditionally protecting and conserving for sustainable use. So these are the four set of rights provided under this act. First is title right, which is limited to maximum of 4 hectare. Then use rights, they can use minor produce. Then relief and development rights. Then forest management rights with respect to the community forest resource. Okay, so these are the four set of rights. Now, who can claim these rights? Any member of scheduled tribes who are residing in that particular forest or who are dependent on that forest uh, for its livelihood. Okay, other then members or members to community who have been or whose three generation, if you count total 75 years from the 13th day of December 2005, they can claim right over forest land. But that is also limited to, or maximum is of 4 hectare. Okay, they can claim right because they are dependent on for their livelihood on that particular forest. Now, who is the governing authority? Who will find out the nature and extent of these rights, of individual rights, community forest right? Yes, Gram Sabha. Gram Sabha is the authority who will take care or who will determine the nature and extent of individual forest right and community forest right. Okay, so here we discuss the four type of rights and who can claim these rights. Next, let's discuss benefits of Forest Right Act. First, as I told you, it rectified the colonial injustice by recognizing the traditional rights of these communities over forest resource that were unjustly curtailed. Okay, then it led to the community empowerment. Why? Because earlier, who was the deciding factor or who was controlling or who was the top authority? State. But now decision making power lies with community. Okay, community, this is became the part of decision making process. So this led to the empowerment of community. Then we have democratic decentralization. Just now I told you who is the top authority. Gram Sabha. Development of power is there from the center. Now, this Gram Sabha entail members from communities who are part of this forest only. So, it will lead to greater transparency. So, democratic decentralization is there. Then we have land rights recognition. Now, by recognizing the traditional right, by giving the legal right, now they have legal document or legally they are occupying that forest, which will safeguard them from unwarranted eviction. Okay, so land right recognition. See here, right to ownership means that even if they don't have legal document, they can still live on that parcel of land. And I told you who can claim these rights, but they don't need legal document after this act. So land recognition, then definitely it will lead to the protection of indigenous traditional knowledge. Then conservation and sustainable use. See, this right led to the protection of forests, and simultaneously it also ensure livelihood or food security of FDST and of forest dwellers and tribes. So it mark a right balance between conservation and sustainable use of forest produce. Okay. Then we have definitely, if they can use the forest produce, they can use the forest minor produce, they can sell it, and definitely they will come out of the pool of poverty, so elevation of poverty. So these are the important benefits with respect to Forest Right Act 2006. Now, having seen the benefits, let's discuss few challenges. There's a poor awareness and understanding. To claim their rights, they need to properly understand the prospect of this act. For that, you need education or awareness. So, definitely, how they will claim if they know about the prospect of this act. So, there's a poor awareness and understanding. Then, there's a bureaucratic hurdle. How there's a bureaucratic hurdle? Because recognition and verifying will take a lot of time, and it will lead to the slow implementation of this act. So there is a bureaucratic hurdle is there. Then resistance from forest department. As I told you, now power is with our community became the part of decision making process. Gram Sabha is the deciding factor if you talk about the nature and extent of individual right and community forest right. So the urge of forest department, or that central that craze for centralized authority, because of that there's a resistance from forest department. Okay. Then issues like eviction and displacement. Then we have technology related issue. See, for verification they launched one mitra software, and now these regions, they are obviously these regions are facing issue of poor connectivity. Plus just now we have seen that there is poor awareness and understanding. Then how they will claim right, even if you bring up software like one mitra software, it is not serving their need in that way. So they face issues like technology related issue. So these are the important challenges with respect to Forest Right Act 2006. So having seen the challenges, having seen the benefits, having seen the objective of this act, what is the need? Need is collaborative effort of government agencies, civil agencies, individuals. For what? For better implementation of Forest Right Act 2006. Okay.